Hello everyone, I'm Kay here on my homestead in Tennessee, and I promised to bring you this message of something that happened to me a week ago, almost exactly a week ago. Saturday night about 8:30, it's Saturday today about 5. So I had mentioned that I had a medical emergency, and I want to talk about that a little bit, kind of put it in context. And I also found out about something today that I absolutely want you to know about, and please watch to the end of the video, or I'm going to talk about that as soon as I finish this topic here. So what happened to me last week is I had a wonderful time with my friends. I just have not felt such peace since I've been here, I guess. Just floating on the river at sunset. We had a lovely time. And, it was about to get dark, and I have made a decision not to drive at night here anymore if it's to be avoided at all. And it's just, I live on a dark, curvy highway, off of a dark, curvy highway, on another dark, curvy road. And it's just, I don't feel confident. And so if you don't feel confident, you shouldn't be behind the wheel, right? But I made an exception because this place wasn't too far away. It was like 15 minutes from my house. And I had wanted to go there for the whole time I've been here, almost 5 years. And it just hadn't happened, and so we made a plan to go. Me and Denise and Daryl, and so we had a great time. And after we got back from the boat, we were standing around the fire, and I'm looking at the sky, and it's starting to get quite dark. The sun has obviously gone down when we were on the water. And I thought, I want to get out of here. So I left, and it's 5 miles to the highway on that little road. And so when I turned onto the main highway, it was dark. Okay, that's fine. I was really concentrated on driving, and I was going between 40 and 45 miles an hour, something like that. And I felt fine. And all I know is something happened to me. And a wave, I either went through a wave of electromagnetic energy, or it was the invasion of the body snatchers. Most people don't even remember that movie now, but or something happened, and I just, all of a sudden, a wave went over, and I was clinging to the steering wheel. And I remember the sensation, when you're dreaming, you're trying to do something, you're trying to push something or pull something or make something happen, and you can't do it because you're dreaming, and you can't achieve that, or you can't escape, or it was like that. It was like a dream. I was pushing on the brake like in slow motion as hard as I could. I had the sensation that I was pressing on the brake as hard as I could to slow down. And obviously, if I had really done that, I was going 45. I would have slowed down like that and just pulled over. But this whole thing was just in slow-mo in my, way. And so I just shook it off. And I just, and then there was another kind of wave, and I managed to shake it off. And I'm looking for a place to pull over and stop, because I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if I'm dying, if I'm passing out. I don't know what is happening. And so it's a dark highway, and it's just individual private residence, roads to people's houses and things. And so I don't see anything right away. And so within a minute or two, I felt okay enough to just keep kind of creeping down the road. There was no one behind me. And I remember there were headlights way up ahead of me. And so I was coming into a particular area, and I remember that, and just, as I went through that area, I kind of got clearer and clearer, and I thought, well, just get yourself home. And that was what was on my mind. And then as I was going through the town, I just thought, you know what, I better take myself to the ER. Because if I get home and there's something actually wrong with me, and I'm home alone, and so I just thought, to be on the safe side, I would go to the ER. That's the first time I've done that since I've lived here. So I have been to the hospital because that's where I get my routine exams, tests, screenings and things. So I went up there, and there was no one waiting, and by the time I checked in and I said, I just need to go to the bathroom, and I went, they were calling my name. So I thought, well, this is fast. This is going to be great. And so I was there for 5 hours. 5 long hours, way past my bedtime. My bedtime was 8:30. And so I had an EKG right away, and that was fine. That was normal. And ERs are set up for certain things. They handle, well, if you're in the big city, they handle gunshot wounds, but they handle traffic accidents and broken bones and sick children and just things out of the ordinary. Just they don't have answers for. And so they put this towards cardiac because they thought, well, maybe I had a palpitation and yada yada. So all the cardiac was fine, but one of the blood tests, you had to do it 2 hours, first 2 hours and then 2 hours later. And so I did not get out of there until 2 a.m. And I thought, oh my goodness, now I have to drive home? Are you kidding? But I did, and I got home fine, and I went to bed, and I was very shaken by this thing. And there's a few anecdotes. That was Saturday night, and on Tuesday I went to my chiropractor, and who's very savvy and awake to everything, and I was telling her about this, and she said, where were you? And I kind of explained where I was on this particular highway, and she said, I was coming through there with my daughter the other day. I usually go on the interstate, but I went through there for the scenic route, and there was this power line dangling, and it hit her car, and it tore the sunroof off of her car. And so she stopped and turned around and got the thing. She said, well, I probably need to get that cover back, and get it put back on. And then a truck hit it, and so they were both talking about this, and she said she felt very, very odd. She said, I didn't have your experience of feeling like I was going to pass out, but very odd. So I thought, well, that's just an anecdote, but it was just like, that's interesting. And so there's another anecdote, and that is I have been following, and I don't even remember how I happened to start following this retired neurosurgeon, but I am a lifelong learner. I want to learn. I don't want to settle back and just accept status quo, and I want to learn truth. I seek truth all the time, and so somehow I happen to be following this person on X, which formerly Twitter, and so I happen to have, and I don't remember how I got to this book, but I did an audiobook. Remember when I drove down to South Carolina? I haven't driven 9 hours in one day since I was young, but I just wanted to make it to South Carolina before sunset, and well, I mean, it wouldn't matter if it wasn't sunset. I wanted to make it to South Carolina in one strip without stopping, and I was meeting my brother and sister-in-law at a rental down there, And I did a video. If you want to watch it, it's really beautiful. It's what's the island? It's called. The name will be right up there. So I listened to this audiobook. It's a great time to listen to an audiobook when you're doing long drives. And so going and coming, I finished this book, and it's called Dr. Mary's Monkey. And if you want your mind to be blown, listen to that book, because it talks about a lot of things in there, which I won't go into here because I'd be here for another 10 minutes just giving you the basic synopsis. But it's set around the time of JFK assassination and things leading up to that and all of that. And so I had listened to this book, and I happened to after I listened to this book, I happened to communicate with one of my fans and friends in Arizona. And she said, "Oh, you should be following this neurosurgeon, Dr. Jack Kruse." I said, "Well, I think I am following him, although I hadn't really, really dived into anything that he does a lot of podcasts, and he's on a mission. This man is on a mission." And so I said, "I think I am following him." So I started paying more attention. And I decided at some point to follow him, to support his work on Patreon. And so after and that's where I've been talking about the circadian rhythm. I'm literally just now learning about this at this point in my life, but that's where I got started on that. And so I just decided to send him a message through Patreon, since I was a member, and I know he pays more attention to members than just any random person on social media. So I told him what happened to me. And funny anecdote, when we were at dinner, Daryl and Denise and I were having a lot of fun asking the waitress, are you frying your food in seed oils, and how's the fish cooked, and we don't want any chemicals, and we were having fun with it, but we're serious too. We want to get the healthiest thing we can possibly get in a restaurant, which you never know what you're getting, right? So at some point the chef came out, because we had all decided to have the local fresh trout out of the stream here. And so the chef came out and was telling us, we wanted to know, how are you cooking this? What are you cooking this in? He said, "Well, we spray the grill with Pam so the fish won't stick." And I said, "Pam?" I just went, "Pam?" That's like a word from when I grew up. Pam? People still use that? And so, yeah, they use it at the restaurant so the fish doesn't stick to the grill, so the skin doesn't. He said, "Well, we just spray the grill and only the skin touches." So we were having a lot of fun with it. We all decided to have the trout anyway, because it was only on the skin side. It didn't touch. And so this is just an anecdote, okay? But it was just interesting, an interesting detail, because when you're trying to figure out something mysterious and very scary, I could have died, because if I had lost control, if I had not gotten my consciousness back, I could have run off the road, and depending on where you are on that highway, I could be dead. But by the grace of God, I survived to tell you this story. And so, who knows if the Pam had anything to do with my consciousness. But it was interesting because I did mention it to the retired neurosurgeon, Dr. Jack Kruse. And for a couple of days I didn't hear anything back from him. And then I think it was on Monday or Monday night or something, I said, well, let me just check again. Maybe he's responded. Because maybe he has some thoughts about what happened to me, because now I'm, very concerned about driving at night, or at all. And so his only response was, never use BAM. It is a deuterium bomb. Read my recent vlogs on consciousness and demyelination to understand. And I thought, okay, well, first of all, I had to look up deuterium. And it is a hydrogen molecule with an extra molecule of hydrogen or something. And so I don't really know what a deuterium bomb is and what effect that could have on consciousness. I tried to read his most recent blog post on consciousness, and there were so many acronyms. I was constantly looking up, what does this mean? What does that mean? What is, because scientists can just speak in acronyms and everybody knows what they're talking about. They don't have to spell every word out every time. So anyway, I didn't get very far, but I want to go back and read that. But I just thought, well, that was interesting. Maybe that had something to do with something. And then, of course, there's all of this, I'm sure you've heard about all of this activity with the sun, the solar, there's a big dark spot on the sun, and it's causing all of these things happening on the earth. There's a lot of seismic activity in Mount Rainier in Washington, in Yellowstone, and even in the Madras Fault, maybe. I mean, who knows what is going on. But I'm just leaving it open, and what I did was I followed up with a young doctor. I was going to say, that the doctor who graduated 1986 medical school, I heard him tell the person next to me, so he's been doing this a long time, and he came in and at the end, at 2 in the morning, he said, I can tell you a lot about what it's not, but I can't tell you what happened. And that's a quote. And so I went to another doctor just as a follow-up, comparing my D-dimer, which is a blood test that you can ask for specifically to determine your potential for clotting in your body. And so I heard about this, 2 or 3 years ago, and so I've started adding that to my regimen of my yearly visits. So I wanted for her to pull up my old D-dimer and the D-dimer that I had, which he said was good, and just compare it. And so he said, this is another quote, I can say with almost complete certainty that you have no blood clots anywhere in your body. And he gestured up and down like that. So that's good. That's the good news. And the good news is my heart is good, and my blood is good, and my EKG was good, and my urine sample, all of that was good. But we don't know what happened to me. So that's the difficult part. So I have decided to get a further study and further test about some questions I have, and just see if that leads to anything. So I will be sure and keep you posted. Okay, that took a while, and now I want to tell you about what I learned today. If you saw my recent video with Hans, the wonderful tree trimmer guy, you know where I may be going with this. Tree trimming is a very dangerous profession, prone to accidents, even when you are doing everything safely. I went over, I took a nap today after my early visit to Nashville, and then getting back and doing the premiere with a live chat and everything. Sometime after that, I took a nap, and when I woke up, I just, it's how you just unconsciously rub over a piece of skin, and nothing itched. I don't remember anything, but for some reason I just reached up into the middle of my back, right where your spine is, where you can't see anything or do anything. And I thought, what is that? A tiny little speck. And I thought, I bet you that's a tick. I've just had chiggers, and I've got a little poison ivy back on this arm again, and a little poison ivy down here, and don't you know, I've got a tick. So I text my neighbor, Natalie, and Hans, who came and did all the wonderful work here with the trees, went down there 2 days later, and that is the reason today's video, which if you haven't seen, please watch it, and share it. It's a wonderful, enjoyable, relaxing, beautiful video. And the reason I didn't have any talking in it is because Hans was over there with the wood chipper, and that was droning through everything. And I thought, okay, just drop the sound out and put in some beautiful music. Images are beautiful and people will enjoy it, and I hope you do. If you haven't seen it, please do watch. So anyway, he went over there and did all that work over there, and then Kip, when I was over there just a little while ago, Kip said, yeah, we didn't hear from him, and so, you know, he was supposed to come back and pick up his stuff and do some more work, and I didn't hear from him. And he said, well, he figured, you know, the rain and, you know, everything got delayed. And so finally he hears from him, and and now I've communicated with him myself. So this is the full story. He was donating his services for a poor family at church who was a member of the church. And he was donating his services, and a tree fell on him and went across his legs, the top of his femurs, and crushed both femurs. The femur is the big bone between your hip and your knee. Both of his femur, the tree landed right on his lap somehow. I guess knocked him back, and it landed there instead of here. If it had landed here, he wouldn't be alive to text me today. But it landed here, and I didn't find this out from Kip. I found it out from him. But he said that, I'm quoting, "I praise God that he kept me conscious." There's that word again, conscious. So that I could call for help. And so he was able to call his helper who was down the hill, who would have, if it had knocked him unconscious, he wouldn't have been able to call for help, and he would have passed away. But he was able to call for help. And it's been 6 days since this happened, and I only found out about it today. And so he has had both femurs replaced with titanium rods already. And it's been 6 days, and he was just able to get into a recliner today. I'm sorry I'm so emotional, but he's such a wonderful man. And he has 2 young children, and they're homeschooling. He's originally from Sweden, married an American, and they have 2 young children. They're homeschooling, and he has this business. So he is going to try to give work to these 2 helpers of his that work for him, but he's out of work. So I communicated with him. I said, are you going to start a fundraiser or anything? If you are, please let me know. I want to share this. And so I will be sharing that with you as soon as that's set up. And I know some of you have been very generous with my housekeeper friend, Denora, and I just hope that you can be generous with this young man, young family. So, very hard worker, and obviously God saved him, you know. He also said, I praise God that by keeping him conscious, which means the blood vessels in his legs weren't broken, weren't destroyed or damaged. They were bruised, but they weren't ripped, because that would have been a blood, you know, what do you call that? A bleed that he probably would have bled out. That's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, I've had, you know, some scary news and some good news, and so I hope that we all will just please, please say a prayer for Hans. For complete and divine healing. I believe that God is watching over him, otherwise he may not be alive today. And so, and the same for me. So your prayers are appreciated, and And I hope you can give generously. If I I will be posting something on my posts page once they have a fundraiser set up, because I know they're going to need some financial help long term. There's a bird has built a nest in my firewood out there. There's so much more to share, but I'm going to stop there because I'm tired, and I just wanted to bring you up to date because I promised to do it. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for caring. And I'll see you next time. God bless you.